home right now. He hasn't been in all evening, but if you gentlemen will care to wait.
Shall we wait, Utterson?
I don't mind if you don't, Doctor. I'm really quite anxious to see Henry.
I too. It has been some time since our last meeting.
And then we'll wait, Pauline.
Perhaps you'd rather wait in the garden? It's a beautiful moonlit night.
It's very comfortable in here. What do you say, Utterson?
We'll wait in here, Pauline.
As you wish, sir. Can I get you gentlemen some refreshments?
Oh, no, thank you, Pauline. How about you, Utterson?
Not for me, Pauline. Thank you.
Very well, sir. As soon as Dr. Jekyll comes in, I'll let him know that you're here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pauline. Well, everything looks quite familiar. Just as it did years ago.
Yes, this is one of those houses where nothing seems to change.
Except its master.
And you've noticed it.
Yes, indeed. That's why I rarely see Jekyll anymore. How many years have you known him?
I've been his attorney for years. I suppose you and I are his two oldest friends.
Indeed, I suppose we are. But friends, like other things, change and pass with the years.
But you two, being medical men, should have a bond of common interest to perpetuate your friendship.
Well, we had. But for the last 2 years, our friendship has been on the wane.
Might I inquire what happened?
We disagreed on a great many subjects, especially one. Lately, Henry is no more like the Jekyll I knew of old, and day is like night.
Perhaps that's what love does to one.
Oh, love. Are you referring to Jekyll?
You mean to say you haven't heard?
No, I haven't. Who's the lady?
Diana Carew, the only daughter of Sir Danvers Carew.
Are you kidding me?
Certainly not. Do you know Sir Danvers and Miss Diana?
Indeed I do. Why, Miss Diana is years younger than Jekyll. I'm surprised she would actually take him seriously.
Well, evidently she does.
Does Sir Danvers approve?
Well, I can't say about that. All I know is that Henry and Miss Diana met at a dinner party at the Rudleys. It seemed to be a case of love at first sight.
How long has this been going on?
6 months or more, I should say.
I'm shocked. Oh, this is as fantastic as the rest of Jekyll's recent behavior. But I say, how do you know all of this? Did Jekyll tell you?
Like yourself, I rarely see Henry anymore. The few meetings we have had, he hasn't mentioned a word of it. There's no secrecy about it. I mean, everyone seems to approve. It's a wonder you hasn't.
No, I haven't.
The first I heard of it was through my cousin, Richard Enfield. He had been paying serious and devoted attention to Miss Diana before Jekyll entered the picture. From then on, his case seemed hopeless, much to his chagrin and despair.
Well, how old's your cousin?
Richard's 25.
Much more suitable for Miss Diana.
So Richard would think, but evidently Miss Diana doesn't agree.
Well, at any rate, I certainly hope that Miss Diana is able to restore Henry to the normalcy that once was his. When I first knew him, he was one of the most engaging fellows I'd ever met. A brilliant young medico with a assured future. But suddenly, he developed this mania for experimenting with rare and unusual drug formulas, the most unscientific balderdash.
To be used for what purpose?
Seemingly, for the purpose of foolhardy experimentation, to indulge the fanciful imagination. Why, the few he discussed with me had no practical value whatsoever.
A hobby, more or less.
Certainly a useless one, as I see it. And one that began to take a toll on him physically. Why, he would spend hours locked up in that laboratory without food or sleep. Pauline told me how she used to beg him just to come out and eat and rest. But when he became engaged in one of those insane experiments, he was like a creature possessed.
He's never told me any of this.
After a while, he stopped discussing it with even me. And then when I questioned him on the state of his health, he would become very angry and we'd quarrel. Gradually, I saw less and less of him, even though I continued to keep an interest in him for the sake of old times. But lately, he's been on my mind a great deal. So I decided on impulse to stop in look in on him tonight, just to see how he's getting on.
That's strange. I too have been worried about Henry as of late. Tonight I was struck with the same impulse.
And so here we met, only to have you tell me that Henry has added romance to his other experiments.
Perhaps that's Henry now.
Oh, he would scarcely ring his own doorbell for his
That's true. I wonder.
Excuse me, Mr. Utterson, but there's a gentleman in the hallway to see you.
A gentleman to see me here.
Yes, Mr. Richard Enfield?
That cousin I was telling you about. Please bring him in, Pauline.
Yes, sir.
can't imagine how he knew when I was here what he was.
Right this way, sir.
Hello there. Didn't expect to see me, did you?
Hardly. Dr. Landon, my cousin Richard.
How do you, sir?
Speaking of the devil.
I've been under discussion.
Not more than 15 minutes ago.
Probably got that through the ether, and that's what brought me here.
But how did you know I was here?
I stopped by your flat. Your maid told me you'd gone to Henry Jekyll's, so on impulse I thought I'd join you. Oh, I'm not intruding, am I?
Oh, no, not at all.
No, we're actually waiting for Dr. Jekyll now. I shouldn't think you'd like to meet him.
You mean because of Diana?
Yes, I was telling Dr. Landon about Diana and Amber.
I bear him no malice. It was simply a case of Diana preferring him to me.
I think it's fine that you could feel that way about it.
It's the sporting thing to do, isn't it? Besides, one way or another, I feel I haven't lost her. Well, I'm sure I'll win her back if I play a waiting game.
Why so optimistic?
Well, of course, there is such a thing as a disparity of years. The spring and autumn widely divided by summer.
I shouldn't be at all surprised that you were right, Mr. Enfield.
At least I'm going to continue to hope so. What a gloomy old house. I say, can we have a bit more light? Positively depressing in this room.
Dr. Jekyll never has any more light than this. He dislikes it.
Give me the creeps. My nerves are on edge anyhow. They have been since last night. That's why I wanted to talk to you. Get it all off my chest.
Why? What's happened?
If it's something private, I'll...
No, stay. I'm glad to have someone to tell it to. That is, if you don't mind horror stories.
After all my years of practice, I'm used to such things.
What are you driving at, Richard?
Do you recall one Sunday when we were walking? We came upon a house that arrested our attention. The one that had no windows. Nothing but a door on the lower story. And the door had neither a bell or a knocker.
I dare say I do remember. It was in a narrow, crooked street. The house was so run down. It looked as if it hadn't been lived in for years. It stood out, you couldn't help but notice it.
We remarked at the time that it had an almost sinister appearance, and that at night it would probably look like a ghost house.
Yes, I remember.
Well, I've seen it at night, and it is sinister.
What do you mean?
I was walking around last night by myself, thinking of Diana, I expect, when all of a sudden I noticed I was on that street. It must have been nearly 3 o'clock in the morning. The street was completely deserted. As a matter of fact, I was hoping even a policeman would put in an appearance.
That's a bit too much to hope for at that hour.
Well, I didn't lack for companionship very long. All at once I saw 2 figures. One was a small man stumbling eastward, and the other was a child, maybe 10 years old, running across the street.
A child on the street at that hour?
As strange as it may seem, yes. Well, at the corner, the 2 ran into each other, and well, then came the horrible part. At the corner, the man trampled calmly over the little girl. He left her screaming on the ground. I was absolutely stunned by the sight. I couldn't believe my eyes. And there this beast stood laughing at the child's misery.
I've never heard of anything more awful.
You made for him right away, of course.
Immediately. And here's the strangest part. He made no attempt to get away, offered no resistance when I grabbed him. But then he did something I'll not forget to my dying day.
What was that?
He gave me a look, a fiendish, horrible look that brought chills all over me.
Was the child badly hurt?
She was bruised some, but more frightened than anything. Her screams brought her parents out, and in less time than it takes me to tell it, the street was black with people.
Didn't they mob this beast?
Oh, they wanted to, all right. I've never seen such a circle of hateful faces. But each time one of them would make for this man, he'd give them that same awful look he gave me, and they'd retreat. He stood there with a sort of black, sneering coolness that was almost unbelievable in such a situation.
A maniac, no doubt.
Didn't they call for the police?
He didn't give him a chance. He walked right up to the child's parents and said, "If you wish to make capital of this incident, I am naturally helpless. But I'm willing to pay for my mistake, so name your figure." The child's father said he would settle for £100.
And did he pay it?
And he told us he didn't have such an amount on him. But if we would follow him, he would get it for us. Where do you think he led us?
It's difficult to say.
To that apparently uninhabited house with no windows and one door.
What?
He whipped out a key, walked right in, and presently came back with £10 and a check for the remainder, drawn payable to bearer.
That check was a forgery, of course.
That was my first thought, and I told him so. But he was quite easy and sneering. As he said, set your mind at rest. I will wait with you until the bank opens and cash the check myself.
And did he?
We all went to the child's parents and waited until 9 when the bank opened. I handed in the check myself, and it was cashed without question.
I've never heard such a thing in my life.
Nor have I.
I haven't recovered from it yet.
What sort of man is he to see?
One of the most unpleasant men I have ever seen. Absolutely detestable. He walks with sort of a stoop, as though he were deformed, with a hunchback. His clothes are dirty and unkempt. His face has a death-like pallor to it, with piercing eyes. And his hair hangs down in long, loose strands under an old, battered hat. Looks more like a vagabond than a man able to pay a check for nearly £100.
What was the name he signed to the back of the check?
Yes, certainly you remember it.
I shall never forget it. It was Edward Hyde.
Edward Hyde?
Yes, do you know him?
No, not at all.
Have you ever heard the name, Doctor?
Never.
Richard, I want you to do me a favor.
Certainly, if I can.
This man, this Edward Hyde, he paid the sum demanded by the parents of the unfortunate child, and therefore the incident is closed. Promise me, you'll never even refer to it again.
Certainly, I promise. But what is the matter with you?
Yes, you seem shaken, unnerved. I thought you said you didn't know this man Hyde.
I've never seen the man in my life. It's just that Richard's story has unnerved me, and I much sooner probably we all forgot it. Do you mind?
No, not at all. Now that I've got it all out of my system, I'd just as soon forget it for all time.
It's a bargain, then.
And now, if our host doesn't soon make an appearance, I'm afraid I shall have to...
Is anyone home?
Diana!
Mr. Enfield, of all people. I never expected to find you here.
One turns up in the strangest of places. How do you do, Sir Danvers?
Richard, my boy, I'm glad to see you again. It's been a long time.
Too long, Sir Danvers. Entirely too long.
Good evening, Mr. Utterson. It's nice seeing you again.
It's nice seeing you as well. So Dennis,
Mr. Utterson,
you know Dr. Landon, I presume?
I've never had that pleasure. How do you do, Doctor?
Miss Carew, I'm delighted.
And Sir Danvers, Dr. Landon.
well, we met a long time ago.
It's been a few years. I trust you're well, Sir
Oh,
Danvers?
quite well, thank you, sir.
But where is Dr. Jekyll?
His housekeeper tells us he's been out already, so we've been waiting. You're welcome to join the waiting list.
Yes, do sit down, Diana.
Beastly hour to call, but Diana insisted.
We were on our way from church, and I saw the lights in the living room and thought it'd be nice to surprise Henry.
Oh, my visit too is in the nature of surprise. It's been some time.
You and Henry are old friends, aren't you, Doctor?
Quite.
Well, he's often mentioned you.
Well, it's nice to know he hasn't forgotten me.
What are you doing here, Richard?
Oh, I came to see Mr. Utterson. I stopped by his flat and I was told that he was here.
Oh, I see. I was afraid perhaps you might have...
Called on Dr. Jekyll?
Well, I shouldn't like any unpleasantness.
Well, I'm sure Richard is too much of a gentleman to cause a scene.
Oh, why, thank you, sir. I have no ill feeling toward Dr. Jekyll. In fact, I feel rather sorry for him.
Sorry.
Well, I've always thought that the spectacle of a man past middle age courting a girl young enough to be his daughter, a thing to be pitied rather than censored.
And I think that remark was in the worst possible taste.
Yes, perhaps you're right. And to save you any further humiliation, I think I'll say goodnight. Diana, Sir Danvers, Dr. Lanyon, I'll lunch with you tomorrow if you don't mind, Utterson.
I'll be glad to have you, Richard. Good night.
Good night, all.
Miss Carew, you'll have to pardon Richard. He was and is quite fond of you, and this situation isn't exactly one that he's like.
A gentleman never makes ill-timed remarks.
After all, there is something in what he says. I mean, Diana's not yet 21. And Jekyll is... I say, how old is Jekyll?
Around my age.
Well, If you were a woman, I would have to say 30. But being a man, I can safely say 45.
I never think of a difference in our years. Henry is so gentle, so kind, so thoughtful. I've never known a man quite like him.
I dare say not.
Don't you ever find him moody, depressed, irritable?
Never irritable with me. There are times when he does seem depressed. But that's only natural, for he works very hard. When I reprove him, for he always says there's so much to be done and so little time in which to do it.
What was that? Say, what in blazes?
Somebody came into this room. I distinctly heard somebody.
So did I. The most awful sounding laugh.
The noise came from Jekyll's laboratory. I'll soon find out. The door's locked. Who's in there? Do you hear me? Who's in there?
Somebody calling me. Oh, good evening, everyone.
Henry.
Oh, Diana, my dear. Oh, and Sir Danvers.
I say,
Have you been here long?
well, I mean, that is, we.
We were on our way from church, but you weren't.
Dr. Langen. My, it's been quite a long time. It's good to see you again, my friend.
Yes, it has, Henry. Who's
And
in the
Mr. Utterson. Well, this is quite a gathering. Why wasn't I told you were all here?
But you...
Well, we were told that you were in the...
All this charming company, and I wasn't informed of your presence. I'll see about this. Pauline must be growing forgetful in her old age. She's usually efficient in itself, so I can't imagine why.
You rang?
Yes, Pauline. Why wasn't I informed that I had guests?
Sir, I thought you had gone out.
Out? What makes you think I had gone out?
Well, sir, you said, I mean,
Pauline.
what?
Pauline, this is most embarrassing. You know I do not keep my guests waiting.
Yes, sir, but I distinctly
Pauline.
remember.
I'm afraid age is telling on me. Clearly you do not remember. Has anyone else called?
Yes, sir, there was a Mr. Enfield.
Enfield. I don't believe I know the gentleman.
My cousin, Richard Enfield. He came looking for me.
Oh, well, I'm sorry I missed him.
It's just as well.
As you say, my dear. Pauline, please, in the future, always remember to check to see if I'm in my laboratory when guests arrive.
Yes, sir, but,
That will be all, Pauline.
yes, Dr. Jekyll.
Do you mean to say you've been in your laboratory for all this time?
What?
Oh, well, who went in there not 5 minutes ago?
No one that I'm aware of.
We distinctly heard that door close with a bang.
And someone gave the most frightful laugh. It chilled me to the marrow.
You must be mistaken, Sir Danvers.
Not at all, Henry. That's the reason why I was banging on the door. We were certain that we
Dr.
heard...
Langen, please don't tell me you're into hallucinations these days. You've always accused me of being eccentric. Perhaps you find your own faults reflected in others.
I've often argued strenuously against his way of living. He's never had the slightest respect for habit or custom.
Habit and custom, my dear friend, are the idols of the throng, but the despair of genius.
Oh, but even genius must be bridled. Excesses of any kind can be harmful, and you've never known what it was like to conserve your strength.
I do say, Langen, seems like old times with you taking me to task again.
He's quite right, you know. He persists in putting all of your time into work, he'll crack up.
All work and no play, you know. It does you no good.
But my work is my hobby.
Experimenting with the most fantastic and useless formulas.
That is a matter of opinion, Dr. Langen.
I'm using my influence to divert his mind to other channels, Dr. Langen. I've always been interested in horticulture, and I'm getting Henry interested in it too.
Really? Horticulture? I used to be somewhat of an amazing gardener myself.
You should see his roses, so beautiful, especially the white ones. Would you like to see them?
Oh, indeed, I should.
They should be especially lovely in this moonlight. Do you mind if I take Dr. Langen out with him?
Oh, not at all, my dear. Go right along, Langen.
Would you like to join us, Mr. Utterson?
If you don't mind, I'll stay and speak with Dr. Jekyll. A matter of some importance.
You know these lawyers, my dear. Always something important, which turns out to be nothing important at all.
Coming, Father?
Might as well, I suppose. But we can't be staying too long. It's almost my bedtime. I'm one of the throng, you know, who makes an idol of custom and habit.
Sit down, Utterson. What's on your mind?
It's about that will of yours.
What about it?
If I recall correctly, you inserted a clause where in the case of your disappearance, 3 months or more, all of your possessions would pass in the hands of one Edward Hyde.
Who is to step into my shoes without delay or question, free from all burdens beyond that of payment of a few small sums to different members of the household.
I thought it was madness when I drew up that will.
My dear Utterson, you are unfortunate having a client such as me. I've never seen a man so upset as you are about my will. You and Lanyon think you're quite a problem.
You never approved of that will, and now.
You've told me all this before.
I'll tell you so again. I've been hearing things about this Mr. Hyde.
Indeed.
Disgraceful things.
Utterson, you have descended into the worst habit of the common people, listening to gossip. Now, I do not wish to hear any more. I thought this was a subject that we had agreed to drop.
But what I heard was abominable. You must change that will.
I am not a man to be commanded.
It's for your own good. It's because I like you and take an interest in your welfare.
Thank you for that. But it cannot change matters.
Henry, you know me. I'm a man to be trusted.
Yes, I know.
Do you know all about this man Hyde?
As much as I know myself.
Why don't you rid yourself of him? Please, I beg you.
I can.
Do
I
so.
so choose. We were all worked up, Utterson. There's nothing to be excited about. But just to set your mind at ease, I repeat, the moment I choose, I can rid myself of Edward Hyde.
I hope so. For your sake.
I want you to understand something else. I take a great interest in Hyde. And if I should be taken away for any reason, I want you to promise me that you will bear with him and get his rights for me. As my attorney, you are bound to do this. But as my friend, you will do it for my sake.
I can't promise I'll ever like this fellow.
I don't ask you to like him. I only ask for justice.
Very well. I promise.
I knew you would. I cannot find words to express my thanks.
I hope I'm not intruding.
Oh, not at all. Utterson and I are quite finished.
Oh, you certainly must see those roses in the moonlight, Mr. Utterson. I came back for you.
I should like you very much, Miss Crew, but I have some very important briefs to review before I retire. I must run along. If you'll excuse me.
Of course, if you must go.
Good night.
Good night, Mr. Utterson.
I shall depend on your promise.
You can count on me.
Thank you. It's good to see you, Utterson. Stop in again soon.
Indeed, I shall.
Well, shall we go join the others in the garden?
Oh, not for the present. Dr. Lanyon is explaining the care of the different variety of roses to Father.
Oh.
I don't think Father is much interested, but that doesn't matter. It'll give us a chance to talk.
Oh, well, I'm grateful for that chance.
Dr. Lanyon is very fond of you.
What makes you think so?
You just told Father and me.
Well, he's fond of me, with reservations. He's never quite approved of me. You know, we used to disagree so violently that if we hadn't been great friends, we should be great enemies.
Didn't you two ever see your life on anything?
Well, not on the subject of science, at least. Over the course of many years, one of my pet theories is that man possesses a dual nature. Lanyon always dismissed my theory as scientific balderdash.
And do you really believe that there are two natures in every man?
Absolutely. One of good and one of evil.
That's a little different to believe.
Why so?
We'll take your case, for instance.
Yes.
I think of you as having one nature, one embodying kindness, gentleness, consideration, and affection for all things.
I think you look at me through eyes blinded by affection.
No matter what. That's how I see you, Henry.
Were I such a man as you've just described, life would indeed be less unbearable. But in each man possesses the nature of good and evil. You must believe what I say.
I have always believed that one is either good or bad, no halfway measure or combination of both.
No one is all bad. There is always some good, some affection in everything.
That's a very generous viewpoint. But then it's like you, Henry.
It's not a very dreaded viewpoint at all. It's a statement of fact.
But these hardened criminals who commit the dreadful atrocities of which we read in the papers every day, do you believe that such men can have any good in them?
These men may have many virtues which far exceed those of the so-called good and pious.
Henry.
But don't laugh, you hear me? Don't laugh!
Henry!
Sorry, Diana, but what I say happens to be true and I know it. And these fiends, these criminals, these maniacs, lie many qualities. Just as in the good, there often lies the desire for crime. Haven't you ever heard of a man who has led an exemplary life, who is honored and revered by all, who suddenly commits some atrocious crime?
Yes, I have.
His friends in the courts could find no apparent reason for the sudden change in him. But there was no change at all. Desire was there the whole time. He who has the good and evil perfectly balanced, so that the good outweighs the evil, is indeed blessed. You must believe what I say, Diana. You must!
Henry! You amaze me. You look at me with eyes different than I have ever seen before. Your tone, your manner. It isn't Henry Jekyll at all. What has come over you?
Feel strange, Diana. You must go.
What is it, Henry? What is the matter?
Don't ask. You mustn't ask. Just get out of here. Go get your father and that old fool of a Lanyon to go. Do you hear me? Go!
Father! Dr. Lanyon, go! Go quickly!
What is it, Carew?
What is it, Diana? What's happening?
Oh, Miss Carew, you look ill. What has happened?
Oh, it's Henry.
Dr. Jekyll?
Yeah.
No, what about him?
What's he done?
We were sitting here discussing its scientific theory of his mental nature.
Rubbish and rot.
I agree with you, Sir Danvers. Go on, Miss Carew.
I didn't agree with him, and he became very angry with me.
We've had many such bitter discussions on the same subject. Don't let that upset you.
But then, suddenly, he became someone I've never seen before, and almost entirely different person.
When a girl starts imagining that sort of rot, it means she needs a good night's rest.
It is her imagination, I tell you. He was another person. He made a move toward me that terrified me.
Where's this scoundrel?
He went into this laboratory and banged the door after ordering me out of the house.
Ordered you from the house?
He said, "Get your father and that old fool of a lady to go!"
Oh, fool! Well, that's a fine thing to call an old friend.
Perhaps he was overwrought. After all, he's been working very hard.
That's no excuse for not being a gentleman.
Certainly not. Old fool indeed. I'm going to demand an explanation. Henry, come out here! Henry, come out
Open
here!
that door. Do you hear me? Get away from that door. Get out of this house!
What? I have never been so insulted in my entire life. I shall never set foot in this house again. Come, Diana.
Dr. Lanyon, what do you suppose is the matter with Henry?
I don't know. He's had me puzzled and worried for a long time. He's done many strange things in the past. But this one is the strangest one of all. Perhaps we should go. Hopefully he'll be himself again in the morning.
I hope so.
They've gone. Just in time, too. I should have killed them all if they'd stayed. I hate that pompous old Sir Danvers. And that stupid Lanyon. And that simpering, pious Diana. I hate them! What a perfect moonlit night. Perhaps I can find another little child out on the street to trample. she cried and begged for mercy. Mercy! How I love to torture women and children. They are so helpless.
Here it is, me bedtime, and I'm afeard to go to bed.
Nonsense, Bridget. There's nothing to be afraid of. It's just your imagination.
Imagination, nothing. I seen it with me own 2 eyes, and it's been on my mind so much today I cannot be doing my cooking. I've been putting salt in the sugar bowl and sugar in the salt shakers.
What was with that salad dressing?
Oh, glory be. I must have got that bottle of castor oil instead of the olive. Oh, now you see how upset I've been.
I still insist that no one came in this house after midnight last night. Dr. Jekyll retires at 10, and I locked up myself after that.
Oh, but I tell ya, I seen this man with me own 2 eyes. Oh, I tell ya, I seen him.
It isn't possible. You must have been dreaming.
Oh, not a bit of it. Oh, well, I was asleep for a few hours, but then the heat in me room woke me up, so I got up to open up the window, and you know, from my window, I can see that door he come in.
Yes, I know.
At first I thought, I must be seeing things. But then I pinched myself to make sure that I was awake. And I was. I tell ya, this man was coming up the path, going straight for the door, which he opens as easy as you please, and walks right in the house.
Now I know you were dreaming. I locked that door myself before I went to bed. And it was still locked when I came down this morning. And the lock hadn't even been tampered with.
Well, just the same, I seen what I know and I know what I seen.
Then why didn't you call for me?
I was too scared. I jumped into bed and I pulled the bedclothes over me head and I stayed there till morning.
Did you hear anyone, as though someone were walking around down here?
Well, I couldn't be telling you that. I was nearly smothered to death by them bedclothes. But I seen it. And nobody, not even St. Patrick himself, can make me say I didn't.
Dr. Jekyll often goes for a turn in the garden when he can't sleep. Maybe it was him that you saw.
Oh, don't you think I know the doctor when I see him? No, this man was short, not tall like the doctor, and hunchback and all stooped over, not straight like the doctor. Besides, I know it wasn't the doctor because I asked him about it this morning.
No. Oh, you shouldn't have done that.
Yes, I found that out.
Was he angry?
Oh, was mad as fire. Well, when he should be thanking me for telling him.
What did he say?
He says to me, Bridget, if you ever see anything like that again, I'll discharge you. And I says to him, if I ever see anything like that again, you won't have to fire me, I'll be gone. And another thing,
Jekyll thinks that must have been done by the mischievous boys in the neighborhood.
Mischievous boys, me eye. 'Twas that boogie woogie I stole. And nobody can tell me different. Besides, Pauline, there's something funny going on around this house. You yourself have said the doctor's a changed man.
He's no more like the man I started working for 20 years ago. He used to be so kind and gentle. Lately he's been nervous and irritable, even unkind at times.
But when did you first notice the change?
About the time you started working here.
The good Lord knows I didn't have nothing to do with him changing. Besides, he's always saying I'm the best cook he ever had.
No, it had nothing to do with you. He started locking himself in that laboratory for days at a time. He even sleeps in there, if he sleeps at all.
For the love of Mike, what's he doing?
I don't know. Sometimes he'd ring for me to bring him coffee and a bite to eat, and he'd come to the door and take the tray from me, not allowing me inside. That was weird, because I used to go in that room the same as any other in the house.
You mean that room ain't been cleaned since I've been here?
He won't permit it.
Maybe he's got some skeletons in there. And he takes them apart and he puts them back together again. I hear that's what doctors do.
I hardly think so.
Oh, if I thought there were cadavers in this house, I wouldn't be here another minute.
I think he's experimenting with something or another. When he'd come to the door to take the tray from me, the smell of chemicals was overpowering at times. And it's taken a toll on him, Bridget. He has aged terribly.
Boy, why not? Working with all that stinking stuff.
But after he met Miss Diana, he changed. He was back to his old self again, and he stopped spending so much time in the laboratory.
Yes. Well, love can take your mind off your work. Oh, but Miss Diana, she ain't been here for 3 weeks or more. And she used to come every other day to help the doctor with the flowers. Oh, you don't suppose they've had a fuss?
Something must have happened, because he's gone right back to spending all of his time in that laboratory.
And looking as pale as a ghost.
Sometimes he looks like a completely different man. I'll tell you, Bridget, I'm worried about him.
Where's he now? In there?
Do you think if he was, I'd be out here gossiping like this with you? No, he went for a walk. And he's liable to be back any moment. You should be on your way.
Oh, yes. Oh! Glory be. Maybe that's him now.
I wouldn't know. The door's unlocked.
Maybe it's the monster! Oh, no! Oh, Lord, I have to save him. Protect me! Oh!
Pauline, it's Connie.
Connie!
Hi, Pauline. I saw Dr. Jekyll out in the garden and I thought I'd run in to see you for a minute. I've just been to the cinema to see the grandest movie, Hearts Asunder, with that handsome actor, Packard Chrysler. Oh, God, how that man can make love. What's the matter with you, Bridget? You look like you've seen a ghost.
Well, I thought... Connie, don't you go knocking on that door unless you tell us who you are.
Did I scare you?
Yes, you did. There's nothing funny about it.
Bridget's been on edge all day long. She thought she saw someone enter this house last night.
I don't think nothing. I know I did.
A burglar?
It couldn't have been. Nothing is missing. Probably just a prowler.
Maybe it's that terrible man everybody's been talking about.
What
What
man?
terrible man?
Who?
Ain't you here?
Who?
Oh, nobody knows just who he is, but he's a terrible looking man. A regular monster, they say. He goes about torturing women and children. Never bothers no men, the coward.
Maybe it's him I seen last night.
Why didn't you call the police?
Well, I was too scared to get out of me bed.
Why don't they arrest this monster?
They say they can't catch him. They go to look for him. He ain't there. There's somebody else there at the place where they thought he was.
How dare you!
Oh, it's an
Bridget! How dare you turn my house into a rendezvous for the idle gossip of servants? Pauline, is this the sort of thing you permit as soon as my back is turned?
Sir, I didn't.
Not another word. Bridget, go back to bed, where you belong.
Yes, sir.
And if I ever hear you talking such nonsense again, I'll discharge you on the spot.
Yes, sir.
And you, whoever you are, I want you out of this house and never come back.
Yes, sir. I mean, no, sir. Why, Pauline?
Now, Pauline, perhaps you can explain to me why, after all these years in my employ, you descend into backstairs gossip.
Well, sir, Bridget was saying that.
Yes, I know, because Bridget is an ignorant woman. Does not mean for you to stoop to her level. I expected more of you.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry, sir. It shan't happen again, sir.
See that it doesn't.
Yes, sir. Shall I lock up for the night?
Yes, Pauline. Very tired.
Been working too hard again, sir. You ought to take a rest before it gets the better of you.
I mean, it already has.
What did you say, sir?
Nothing, Pauline. Nothing. Stop looking at these flowers. They were beautiful. They were fine. They've been completely destroyed by evil.
What a pity, too. I can't imagine anyone deliberately destroying something so lovely. And you prize them so.
Yes, I prize and love them.
Miss Diana was so fond of those roses. Whatever will she say when she finds out?
I too am wondering what Diana will say when she finds out. Get these out of here, they're useless things. No man cares for the flower that is withered, even though his own hands blow
But
it.
sir,
I was quoting, not reporting. Could that be now? Please, go see who that is, and if it's anyone here for me, I'm not home to anyone. You understand?
I understand, sir.
I mean, Jekyll would not have destroyed those roses. Edward Hyde saw no beauty in them. He tore them up by the roots! I am not Hyde. I must not allow him to dominate me. My future must be devoted to my better self.
Excuse me, sir. But Sir Danvers Carew is here to see you.
Sir Danvers, this hour. Tell him I'm not at home, Pauline.
Told him that, sir. But he says he knows you are. He saw you come in from the garden and he insists on seeing you.
Very well, Pauline. Show him in.
Yes, sir.
Sir Danvers wants.
Right this way, sir.
Ah, good evening, Sir Danvers.
Dr. Jekyll?
May I take your hat and stick, sir?
No, I shan't be staying long.
Yes, sir.
Please, sit down, Sir Danvers.
Thank you, I prefer to stand.
You'll excuse me if I say I'm extremely tired.
Several weeks ago, you ordered Diana, Dr. Lanyon, and myself from your house.
Most regrettable decision. But if you could understand the circumstances.
There are no circumstances to excuse such behavior.
I'm wrote my apologies.
Apologies are not enough, sir. I am not accustomed to being ordered from the houses of my inferiors.
Inferiors?
I repeat it. Inferiors.
You must allow me to question your judgment on that, sir.
I shall not mince matters with you. I shall come directly to the point.
Well, that would be a matter of a novelty for you, sir.
And I am not here to be insulted.
Beg your pardon. Pray, go on.
Any man who behaves as you did that night is not a gentleman. Therefore, my inferior. I vowed at that time that neither Diana nor myself would ever set foot in this house again. And yet here I am.
Ah, I see.
And I'm assuming you have received my letter forbidding you from my house?
Naturally. Otherwise I should have called often, as has been my usual custom ever since I've known Diana.
And I have forbidden Diana to see you, even under the pretext of caring for your flowers.
Flowers no longer need her care. They've been completely destroyed by evil.
I have forbidden Diana ever to see you again.
I'm aware of that.
But, for the first time in her life, she's disobeyed me. She has been meeting you in secret.
And how do you know that?
I have had her follow.
Indeed.
And I am here to insist that your attentions to my daughter must cease immediately and for all time.
And if I refuse?
I shall resort to drastic measures.
And, what does Diana have to say to this ultimatum of yours?
It is not for her to say. She is but 20 years old and living under my roof. And if she dares disobey me further, I will find ways to deal with her. And now, sir, I bid you good night.
Just a moment, Sir James.
This interview is at an end.
I should like to ask you some questions.
Well, sir,
Is your objection to me based solely on that most unfortunate occurrence that one Sunday evening?
that was but a culmination of my several objections.
And may I inquire as to just what they are?
I'd rather not discuss it.
But I insist. When I first met Diana, you gave no sense of disapproval.
I have never wholly approved from the start. Think of the disparity in your ages.
Love is no respecter of rank or age.
Rubbish and rot. It's ridiculous to even think that Diana could be interested in a man like you. She is infatuated. Nothing more. You bewitched her with some sort of spell you have her under.
That isn't true. I love Diana and she loves me. Matter of fact, she's the first person who ever felt like she truly belonged to me.
She shall never belong to you. I promise you. Such an alliance would ruin her life. Even now, she is so changed that I, her own father, scarcely recognize her at times.
Changed? In what way?
Before she met you, she was a carefree, light-hearted girl, enjoying the company of her contemporaries. Interested in a fine young man, her own age.
You refer to Richard Enfield, no doubt.
Of whom I approve.
Evidently, Diana does not share your approval.
She will. Once she's free of the spell she's under. Since she met you, her whole nature has undergone a complete change. She might even be another person. But Mephistopheles has tempted Marguerite for the last time.
Mephistopheles?
Exactly. For I am told the experiments in science you do are the works of the devil.
And your informer?
It doesn't matter.
Lanyon. My dear friend, Lanyon.
Any man whose irregularities and eccentricities are as pronounced as yours is a madman.
A madman! A madman, you say?
And if you ever see my daughter again, will have you dealt with in the manner they deal with madmen.
Madman, indeed. No. Henry Jekyll is not a madman. But Edward Hyde. Edward Hyde. Potion. Potion.
Dr. Jekyll, came to see if you need anything before I go to bed. Dr. Jekyll? He's gone. How did he get out of here so fast? Oh, there you are, Dr. Jekyll. I came to see if you can.
Police. Yes, police now.
Who is it? Just a minute.
I'm Inspector Newcomen of Scotland Yard.
Oh, thank God, Inspector. Please come in. I'll turn on the lights, but don't leave me, please. I've been such a fright and I'm all unstrung.
Don't worry, lady, I'll be right here.
I've been waiting for hours. I thought no one would ever come.
This is the residence of Dr. Henry Jekyll, isn't it?
Oh, I don't know.
Will you try and get a hold of yourself and tell me what's happened here?
Oh, sir, I'm afraid he's met with foul play.
What do you mean?
It was about 10 o'clock last night. I came in here to see if Dr. Jekyll needed anything before I went to bed. The room was in complete darkness. And that door opened, and you won't believe what came out. Dr. Jekyll!
Good morning, Pauline.
Is it really you?
Of course. Whatever's the matter with you?
And you're okay, nothing has happened, you haven't been murdered, have you?
Well, if I have, I'm about the liveliest corpse that ever existed. Oh, I see we have a visitor. Rather early hour for a caller, isn't it? Indeed. And what brings you here at this ghastly hour?
Well, we have a report of a telephone call made from this house last night.
Naturally. There were lots of phone calls made last night. I made them myself.
You know,
Then why should that concern the police?
this was an unusual call. You see, the operator reported that someone was screaming over the phone, and the only word she could make out was police.
Please, Dr. Jekyll.
Pauline! Please do not interrupt the inspector. Yes?
Well, whoever it was must have fainted or gone away because the receiver was left off the hook, and we haven't been able to get this house since.
The receiver is on the hook, as you can see for yourself.
So it is. That's funny. The operator must be crazy.
What time did you say this occurred?
She reported it about midnight.
Oh, perhaps she fell asleep. And these midnight operators must have nothing to keep them awake all night.
Well, that's right. But this lady here said that...
This is my housekeeper. You see, we have a very nervous and excitable Irish cook who has her imagining all sorts of things and, well, has her all wrought up.
I tell you, sir, I saw someone come in this house last night. They came out of your laboratory and went into the garden.
Yes,
and...
of course, of course. I've been working late at night in my laboratory, and sometimes I like to go out into the garden for some fresh air. But what were you doing prowling around the house at that hour?
I wasn't prowling, sir. This was 10 p.m., right after
Nonsense. Nonsense, Pauline. I distinctly heard Big Ben strike 1 before I even left my laboratory. And if someone was in here, don't you think I would have heard them being right in there with the door open most of the time?
No, it seems to me you would have.
Of course, you see, it is just the imagination of a very upset woman.
Yes, I know how that is. I have a wife who can imagine more things.
Well, then you can understand, Inspector. Now, Pauline, please, go back to bed until it's time for breakfast.
Please, sir, I haven't been to bed. I haven't had my clothes off all night. I've been up there with Bridget and...
I'll have no more of this. Do as you're told.
Yes, sir.
Now, Inspector, I would like to get a few hours rest before breakfast.
Sure, I'm sorry to have bothered you. I just thought this phone call might be a clue to a murder that was committed last night.
Murder?
Haven't you heard?
No.
Oh, that's right. It's too early for the morning papers, but you'll read about it.
Who was murdered?
Oh, a very prominent man. Sir Danvers Carew.
Sir Danvers Carew.
Why, he was...
He's the father of my fiancée. Very fine gentleman. This is shocking news indeed. I must go to Miss Diana at once. Have they any idea who might have done such a foul deed?
Not a clue, so far. Well, we'll get this one. We always do. Scotland Yard never fails.
If I can be of any assistance, please, Inspector, don't hesitate to call on me.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Jekyll.
Poor Sir Danvers. It's terrible. It's terrible.
It certainly is. But we'll get this murderer. We always do. Good morning, Dr. Jekyll. Sorry to have bothered you.
All in the line of work, Inspector. Pauline, would you please show the inspector out? Please. What does my conscience accuse me? Deed could not have been mine. Was it Hyde's? Courage, Henry Jekyll. Courage.
Pauline! Pauline! Don't be leaving me up there all by myself!
Bridget!
Dr. Jekyll?
Bridget, what is the idea of you barging in here dressed in that outlandish attire? Why aren't you in bed, where you belong?
Sure, and I ain't been been able to sleep a week all night. Neither Pauline nor me. Not with that monster roaming this house.
What monster? I told you if I ever heard that nonsense again, I would discharge you, and I meant what I said. Pauline, did you use that telephone last night?
Yes. Yes, sir.
What for?
Because she seen what I seen the other night.
You be quiet. Well, Pauline?
Well, sir, I thought I saw...
You thought. And through your thinking, you brought the police to my door at 4 in the morning.
I was afraid something had happened to you. I thought that man...
What man?
The same man I seen. That hunchback villain.
That's just your Irish imagination.
Irish imagination, nothing. Oh, I'm going to tell you something, Dr. Jekyll. I seen what I seen when I seen it. And nobody's going to tell me I didn't.
Bridget, you're fired.
Well, then I quit. But I seen what I seen. That's my story, by golly, and I'm sticking to it.
I'm sorry about all this, Dr. Jekyll, but I could have sworn...
If I hadn't used my wits, it might have caused me a great deal of embarrassment. There's been a murder committed, and something like that telephone call could be used as circumstantial evidence involving an innocent party.
I know, but I was so afraid something had happened.
You'll feel better after Bridget is gone. You'll have no one to upset you. Now I must go to Miss Diana in her hour of grief. You go get my hat.
Poor Miss Diana. Poor Sir Danvers. I didn't think he was in this house just last night.
That's another thing, Pauline. No one must ever know that he was here. Once again, circumstantial evidence could cause me a great deal of trouble.
Yes, sir. Would you like some breakfast before you go?
No, Pauline. How could that be?
Maybe it's the inspector back again. Maybe he's found the murderer.
Well, why should he come here to tell me?
Don't you remember, sir, you told him that you and Miss Diana...
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. I'm so confused.
You should take a rest before you go see Miss Diana.
No, I must go to her now. Please, go see whoever that is at the bell and send them away.
Yes, sir. Who could that be?
I'll check. Utterson, please, Pauline, go let him in. Did you ring the bell just now?
Yes, I was about to ring again. I remembered sometimes up all night on the board. I came around the side of the house, saw the lights on for the time. What are you doing up and awake at this hour, dressed?
I was just about to ask you the same thing.
Henry, I have to talk to you. Alone.
Yes, sir. Excuse me, sir.
Henry, a terrible thing has happened. Sir Danvers' crew has been murdered.
Yes, I know.
What? How do you know?
Inspector Newcomb of Scotland Yard was just here. He told me.
What was the inspector doing here?
He came to investigate some silly phone call that Pauline was stupid enough to make last night.
Did he question you as your whereabouts last night?
Me? Why should he question me? I had nothing to do with the murder.
No, if you don't tread with caution, you could be implicated.
I implicated? How?
Do you recognize this?
No, I can't say that I do.
It's part of a walking stick I gave you as a present about a year ago.
How did you come by?
I found it at the scene of the crime. It had rolled into the gutter. Nobody knows I had it. I wanted to talk to you before I brought this evidence to light. Did you give this cane to Edward Hyde?
What makes you think Edward Hyde had anything to do with this?
Servant girl saw the murder committed.
What?
Her description of the murderer is that of Hyde.
How do you know what he looks like? You've never seen him.
No, but my cousin Richard Enfield has. He saw him trample a girl one night in Soho. We found out all about him, even where he lives. A little house with no windows. In the morning, when Richard reads the papers, reads the servant girl's description, no doubt he'll inform the police. And they'll search that house in Soho. And if they find out he's a friend of yours, the beneficiary of your will...
No one knows that but you, Utterson. And as my attorney, you were sworn to keep the contents of my will sacred.
Which is a secret I promised to keep. But your Danvers crew was also my client. As a matter of fact, the way they identified the body was an unposted letter on his person addressed to me. Therefore, I was dragged into the case immediately. And Miss Diana has asked me to help bring this murderer to justice. You're not hiding this fellow, are you, Henry?
Utterson, I'll never again look on the face of Edward Hyde.
Where is he?
He's vanished. That's all I can say.
You seem quite sure of him.
I am quite sure. I have reason that I cannot explain to anyone right now. I am done with Edward Hyde for all time. God willing.
Glad to hear you say that, Henry. One more thing.
Yes?
Did Edward Hyde dictate the terms of your will? I mean that clause where if you went missing, you would inherit all of your possessions?
You might say he indirectly influenced me.
And it's as plain as day, Henry. This man whom you called a friend was a fiend who meant to murder you and inherit your wealth. You've had a fine escape.
And what is more to the point, Utterson, I've had a great lesson. God, what a lesson I've had.
At the expense of Sir Danvers' life.
You will not reveal to the courts your possession of that cane?
No, Henry. I shan't. I'm going to destroy it. Should it ever come to light that I obstructed the end of justice.
No one will ever know.
God, what a night I've had. I hope I never have another one like it.
Diana, she must be heartbroken.
She's almost frantic with grief. Will you see her?
Of course, we'll go to her right away.
I'll bring her inside.
Is she here?
Yes, she's in my car. I told her I wanted to see you first. I'll get her.
Thank God for a friend such as Utterson. Luckily, I went to that house in Soho last night and destroyed all my papers, so I am free from suspicion. Oh, dear God, give me the strength and courage to continue on henceforth as Henry Jekyll. Diana's my wife.
Henry! Henry!
Oh, Diana. Diana, you must be brave.
My poor father. I'll never get over them, never. Neither will I.
Who is this girl?
Don't you remember me, sir? You chucked me out of here last night for gossiping with Pauline and Bridget about that monster.
And what are you doing here now?
I wrote her, Henry. She saw Father killed last night.
And if it's the man I think it is, it's the same one we were talking about last night. Oh, a terrible looking man, all hunchback and everything, a regular beast. Oh, it was awful.
Why would you bring her here, Diana?
I want you to know the whole story, just as Colleen told it to the police.
They had me over there most all night, taking my pictures and everything. Oh, I was scared.
Why should you listen to all these gruesome details again? It will only upset you.
That's what I told Miss Carew.
I thought perhaps if you knew everything, you might be able to find this man and bring him to justice.
Of course, my dear. I will do everything and anything that I can. I was only thinking of you and what you've been through. But if you insist,
Shall I commence?
you may begin.
Well, I had went to the cinema to see Packard Chrysler in that picture, Hearts Asunder.
That's enough about the picture. I've heard all about Mr. Chrysler.
Yes, sir. Well, I came here to tell Pauline and Bridget about the picture.
Would you just get on with your story?
Yes. Well, when I went home, that is the place I work, I was sitting by my window in my room on the 3rd floor, dreaming about Packard Chrysler. When all of a sudden I look at it and I see a fine-looking old gentleman walking along, minding his own business, when all of a sudden, up from behind him comes this beast, this monster, this wretch,
Who
this...
struck Sir Danvers with a walking stick.
Yes, and Sir Danvers fell, and this monster jumped on top of him and kicked him and kept beating him with a stick. He acted like someone who's gone crazy. Oh, my poor father.
Diana, you were ill. I knew we should not have let her tell this story. Let me get you something.
No, I'm all right, Henry. Go on, Connie.
And then I did what Miss Diana started to do now. I fainted dead away.
If only you telephoned the police at once.
How could I? I had passed out, and I didn't come to for an hour or more. By then, the murderer was gone long ago.
And you say this man looked like a hunchback.
Oh, yes, sir. Terrible-looking man. And he wore an old cloak that came clear to the ground, and his hat pulled down way over his face.
You were up on the 3rd floor, and a hat covered his face. How could you tell what his face looked like?
They was under a street lamp, and I got darn good eyesight.
And you say this fiend left no clue whatsoever?
None whatsoever.
Oh then, my dear, that's not a very comforting thought, but I'm afraid this is going to go down as one of life's unsolved mysteries.
That ain't what the police said. They said they'd find him if it took 1,000 years.
Utterson, will you please see this young woman home?
Certainly.
So you're going to chuck me out of here again, after I took the trouble to come down here and tell you my story.
I am not chucking you out, as you put it. But I am very tired and upset. So is Miss Carew. Thank you for coming here.
Oh, it's all right. I like doing it.
Now, my dear, I will take you home after Pauline fixes some breakfast.
I couldn't eat a thing, Henry.
But you must.
I ain't had a thing to eat this morning.
Well, you shall. Utterson, here, take this and buy the woman a nice breakfast for her troubles.
Oh, gee, thanks. And whenever you need me, miss, just tell me. I'll be happy to help you.
Thank you, Connie. You've been splendid.
I'll let you know any updates, Miss Carew.
Thank you, Mr. Utterson. You've been very kind.
I will do all that I can to help you, within my limitations.
Do you think they'll put all those pictures they took of me in the papers?
I'm sure they will.
Oh, gee, I hope they got the good ones.
Glad you asked me to stay, Henry. I need your comfort, your protection more now than ever before.
Oh, yes, and I need yours. I need your strength to help me go on to a better life. Somewhere far away from here. All the horrible things that have happened. You do care for me, don't you?
Haven't I proved it? Even at the risk of losing Father's love?
Yes, I know.
When I continued to see you and care for you against his wishes, it was the first time in my life I had ever disobeyed him.
You mustn't reproach yourself for that, my dear. It was my fault. I should never have seen you. But I couldn't risk losing you. You're my tower of strength. My only reason for living. Let's get married at once. And go far away from here to the ends of the earth. Come with me, Diana.
I can never leave here until I have found my father's murderer and brought him to justice.
To seek revenge is unchristian-like.
You say that, Henry, because you are what you are. A noble man of fine principles. But I cannot let this monster go unpunished.
You will gain nothing by it, Diana. Your father cannot be restored to you by the punishment of some poor, unfortunate man.
Are you sympathizing with the murderer?
He's simply someone who allowed the worst side of him to take complete control of him. He is to be pitied. To forgive is godly.
But I am human! And I am determined to unravel this mystery. I'll never rest until I see him standing on a scaffold. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth.
Yes, Diana.
We'll wait.
I tell you, Inspector, there's something off about this house. I felt it the first time I came here. And now that I know it's the hiding place of a murderer, it just gives me the creeps.
Are you absolutely sure that you saw this?
On the child in Soho, and how he paid off the parents to avoid arrest.
Yes, yes. We've checked out that house. The one with no windows in front, early this morning.
What did you find?
We spoke to a housekeeper, an old hag, who told us he hadn't been there for 2 days, which would be the night of the murder. She also said that she hadn't seen him. It was the first time she had seen him in several weeks. And his habits were very irregular.
Did you search the house?
Yes. It seemed that it was easily ransacked recently.
What did you find?
The most important thing we found was a pile of ashes on the hearth, where some papers had been burned. And from those ashes, I retrieved a partially burnt bank book. When the bank opened, I investigated and found that there was no recent deposits, but there was a withdrawal, the last withdrawal, a check for £90.
Which was the check he gave to the parents of the poor child. The balance of the £100 demanded by the father was to be paid in cash.
Yes, the bank had no further address other than the one in Soho. Nor did they seem to know much about Mr. Hyde, except what he looked like, and this description matched exactly the one given by Connie, the maid, who had seen Mr. Danvers murdered.
And the man I saw come in this house last night after midnight. Did you question Hyde's housekeeper?
Yes, but she seemed to know nothing, but we'll keep on. Maybe we can get something out of her.
Dr. Jekyll will be in directly.
Oh, Pauline,
Yes.
I'd like to ask you a little bit more about that phone call from the other night. Are you absolutely sure that no one from this house called the police?
I wouldn't know, sir. If you remember Dr. Jekyll telling you that Bridget the cook had me all upset.
Well, maybe Bridget had good reason to be upset.
I don't know, sir. She's no longer here.
Yes, I know that. I had a little talk with Bridget this morning.
What did she say?
Nothing much. Don't be alarmed, Pauline.
No, sir. Here's Dr. Jekyll now.
Good morning, Inspector.
Good morning, Dr. Jekyll. Here I am again, like a bad penny turned up again.
So I see. And what brings you here this time?
Oh, we just have a few things to clear up. It won't take long. This is Mr. Enfield, Dr. Jekyll.
Richard Enfield.
That's it.
Ah, nice to meet you. Heard a great deal about you.
Heard a great deal more about you.
For your cousin, Mr. Utterson, no doubt. You know, Utterson is my dearest and oldest friend.
So I've heard.
Well, will you gentlemen be seated?
I don't mind if I do. I've been running around this morning. I'm kind of tired. Spent most my morning down in Soho.
Soho? Wow, that's a very quaint part of our city.
Know anybody down there?
Can't say that I do.
Ever heard of a man named Edward Hyde?
Hyde? Edward Hyde.
Yes, that's right.
If I do, I can't seem to recall the gentleman. You're lying! Excuse me, Mr. Enfield!
Take it easy, Mr. Enfield. Now let's just all sit down and talk this thing over and not get excited.
I'm sorry.
Go on, Inspector.
So this man Hyde, he lives in this crooked street, in the oddest house you'd ever see. There are no windows in the front, just a door that stands
What
out.
makes you think I'd be interested in any of this?
Well, if you'll pardon me for mentioning it, I know that you and Miss Carew, well, you're sweet on each other. Am I right?
Yes. Miss Carew and I are to be married.
I don't believe it!
And why should you doubt it? Yes, Inspector.
Well, you gave me your word the night of the morning after Sir Danvers' murder that you would help me all that you could to find that murderer.
Of course, I will do anything that I can. Miss Diana is very upset and is anxious for her father's murderer to be brought to justice.
Oh, naturally. No doubt you've read in the papers the description of the murder as provided by us, by the maid Connie, who had seen the dreadful deed done.
Yes, Connie was here herself and told me the whole story.
Why should Connie come to you?
She was brought here by Miss Diana, who wished for me to hear the entire and accurate details from Connie herself, before the newspapers had a chance to distort them for the sake of a good story.
Well, this man Hyde fits that description exactly. That man that lives on that funny little house in Soho.
Oh, then I congratulate you, Inspector. I knew Scotland Yard wouldn't fail. Have you alerted Miss Carew?
Not so fast, Doctor. We haven't caught him yet.
Well, if you know where he lives, that should be rather easy.
Well, he seems to have disappeared. And we thought maybe you could help us out with this point.
Me? How can I help you find a man that I don't even know?
You're lying, Dr. Jekyll. You do know him. You are shielding the murderer of Sir Danvers Carew.
Aren't you mad? Do you really think that I would shield the man who murdered the father of the woman I love?
Well, I do find that hard to believe.
I know
the
this.
monstrous thing I've heard in my life.
I know this man Hyde. I've seen him and talked with him.
Really? Well then, it seems to me that you would be the one to question, not I. Tell me, Mr. Enfield, are you in the habit of making friends with such men?
The inspector knows how I met Hyde. I saw him commit an act of cruelty in Soho a month ago. And I also saw him come into this house last night after midnight.
Indeed. And what fiction magazine do you write for?
Don't try to evade! I know what I'm talking about! I was passing this house last night on my way home from the club when I saw Hyde entering your front gate. I had the taxi man stop, and I jumped out and ran up to your garden just in time to see Hyde enter through the back door. And the house was in darkness, but in a second I saw a light come on into that room.
My laboratory.
I ran to the window just in time to see you pull back the curtains.
Ah.
The room was flooded with light, and I could see everything, plainly.
And where was Hyde?
He wasn't there.
Well, you've not told me that before. Well, how much time was it between the time that Hyde entered this house and the time that Dr. Jekyll pulled back the curtains from his laboratory?
It couldn't have been a minute.
Dr. Jekyll couldn't have made away with Hyde in that amount of time. He ain't a magician.
Hardly. Don't you see how ridiculous his story is, Inspector?
But I tell you, I saw him come in here. I'm not crazy. And I wasn't drunk.
I would never admit a man of that sort to my home. Now, Inspector, if you listen to me, I think I can explain the reason for Mr. Enfield's accusations. See, before I came along, Mr. Enfield here was paying Miss Diana a great deal of attention. As a matter of fact, he had asked her to marry him, but she refused.
I'm beginning to see.
When I entered the picture, Diana broke off with him entirely. Now, Enfield tried repeatedly to renew their friendship, but she was steadfast in her determination to marry me.
A man old enough to be her father. I told her how ridiculous it was.
That was for Miss Carew to decide, not you. So you see, Inspector, this ridiculous tale, this trumped-up bit of fiction is just Mr. Enfield's means of retaliation.
That's a lie. And I will prove that you're concealing this man Hyde, and I have to watch this house myself 24 hours a day. Good morning, Inspector. If you need me, you know where to find me.
Well, that does seem like a little bit of jealousy there, doesn't it?
Yes, I've never seen a more obvious case.
Well, just the same. For safety's sake, for your safety, I'm going to have your house watched, night and day. Well, this monster may have designs on your life.
I hardly think so, Inspector. I have no known enemies.
Neither had Sir Danvers, as far as we could find out. Well, this man Hyde may be lurking through your neighborhood. The cook, Bridget, came to us, and she swears she saw a man of Hyde's description.
You mustn't listen to anything Bridget says. As I said before, she is a very excitable Irish woman, and, well, You know how excitable the Irish can be.
Yes, I know. I'm sorry to have bothered you, but Mr. Enfield's story seems so convincing.
Yes, no doubt.
He did give us the lead on that house in Soho, which is being watched. Just as your house will be watched. Can't be too careful.
Oh, Inspector, and if I should see anyone who matches the description of this Hyde, be sure to let you know right away.
Thank you, Dr. J. Good morning.
Morning, Inspector.
Just one more thing. I checked with the operator about the call that was supposedly made from this house the night of the murder. And she swears by all that is holy that she was wide awake and not dreaming. And that someone was screaming and yelling for the police.
She's right. She's absolutely right.
She is. Why? I thought you said.
After you had left, I questioned both Pauline and Bridget, and finally got Bridget to confess that she had made the phone call. See, she fancied she had seen or heard some prowlers around the house and phoned for the police. I dismissed her immediately for making you come here on a fool's errand.
Ah. So she's the one that it was, huh?
Yes.
Huh. Well, the operator also said the receiver was off the hook for hours and that you couldn't get through to the house.
Well, you saw the receiver on the hook with your own 2 eyes, didn't you?
Yes, that's right, I did. Or I think I did. Just as Mr. Enfield thought. Well, just the same, I'm going to have my men keep a straight eye on this house. Good morning, Dr. Jekyll. Good morning.
Enfield saw Hyde enter this house. The Hyde who seems to come upon me without warning these days. And how hard I try to fight him off. Dare not leave this place. Or if I should go out and Hyde should overtake me, he'll be captured by the police. Please, what do I see? See Hyde being dragged to the gallows. A rope around his neck. No. I am not Hyde, I am Henry Jekyll. For how long? That fiend is liable to come upon me at any moment. And I feel I am so close to perfecting my formula that would help rid myself of Hyde forever. Let's get a trusted friend to obtain those drugs for me. Lanyon. Dr. Lanyon. I'll bind him by his professional honor. Secrecy. He must come to me at once. Dear Lanyon.
Where is Dr. Jekyll?
I haven't seen him since supper, sir.
But he's expecting me. He wrote me a letter asking me to be here no later than 10 o'clock.
Yes, I know. Dr. Jekyll told me this morning that he had written you, and when you got here, to show you in here and have you wait for him.
It all seems very strange. And his letter was very odd. And this most unusual hour. I can't figure it out, Pauline.
He's been acting so strange lately. I mean, he's always been a peculiar man, but it just keeps getting worse as time goes on. This afternoon, he was acting like a madman. I couldn't do a thing with him.
Where is he now?
Well, that's just it. I don't know.
Is he in the house?
Think so? I don't know. There's somebody in there.
What are you talking about, Pauline?
Well, he went in there right after supper. He was acting in a way I've never seen.
How was he acting?
Nervous, twitching, almost hysterical.
Boy, couldn't it be that Sir Danvers' death had hurt him to that extent? Although it was a dreadful shock.
No, I don't think that's it. Miss Diana telephoned earlier and he wouldn't even come out to speak to her.
Had they quarreled?
Not that I know of, sir. When I knocked on the door of his laboratory that I really got scared.
Why?
Well, he was moaning and weeping. And I told him that Miss Diana wished to speak to him and he yelled, "Get away from that door!" I will see no one and talk to no one,
Strange.
What really frightened me was his voice. It was changed. Completely changed. It wasn't his voice at all.
Perhaps that was just your imagination.
Don't you think I know Dr. Jekyll's voice after 20 years?
Yes, you should. Are you sure he's in there alone?
I'm not even sure it's him. Oh, sir, what are we going to do?
Just leave it to me, Pauline. I'll have a talk with him.
But he's never listened to you. You've always quarreled about everything.
Well, perhaps for the first time, I'll be able to persuade him from doing this infernal work that he's been doing for years.
I hope so.
I'll let him know I'm here. Henry, it's Lanyon. Henry?
Thought he was in there. Perhaps he isn't here after all. Would you like a drink while you eat, sir?
Thank you, Pauline. I think I may be in need of one. I'll join you in a moment. Dear Lanyon, you are my oldest and dearest friend, and I call on you for aid. My life, my honor, my reason are all at your mercy. If you fail me tonight, I am lost. I want you to postpone all other engagements for tonight and be at my house no later than 10 o'clock. Before you arrive, I need you to go to the Messrs. Mall and obtain an emergency supply of rare drugs for my use only. Paulina will admit you, and then you are to be left alone in my living room. If I am not there when you arrive, you must wait for what seems to have taken complete possession of me. For what seems to have taken complete possession of me. What ails you, my friend?
better than I know myself.
Your name?
That does not matter. I am here on behalf of Dr. Jekyll. Pray. Sit down, Dr. Lanyon.
Where is Henry Jekyll? In there?
You will find no one in there.
Then where is he?
Even if I told you, you would not believe me. But first, we shall talk. You must go to the Mester's Mall.
But I just...
Silence! You must go to the Mester's Mall and get the drugs that I... Dr. Jekyll desires. He is depending on you to do this. Must not fail.
For more of his infernal experiments, I presume.
Which you have always termed scientific balderdash. Which Henry Jekyll has perfected only too well.
I do not believe that any living man could perfect or put into practice some of Jekyll's fantastic theories.
Well, Dr. Lanyon, would you believe that I am Henry Jekyll and that Henry Jekyll is me?
Sir, whoever you are an imposter. Now tell me where Dr. Jekyll is, or I shall telephone the police.
Police? No. Not the police.
What have you done with Henry Jekyll?
What have I done with him? What has he done with me? I will show you. But first, you must promise me that you will obtain those drugs for Dr. Jekyll. Promise?
I promise.
Do you see this? A liquid of bright red. A compound derived by Dr. Jekyll. Tell me, Dr. Lanyon, do you wish for me to prove to you that man is not truly one, but truly two? If you do, a new province of knowledge shall be laid open to you here and now.
What do you propose to do?
Blast your sight by prodigy, to stagger the unbelief of Satan. Shall I do it?
Yes, go on.
Dr. Lanyon, you must swear to me that you will keep this a secret until your dying day. Do you swear?
I swear it.
Now, Dr. Lanyon, you will have groveled in the ditch of unbelief. You who have ignored all virtues of transcendental medicine. You who derided your superiors. Behold, the man who stands before you. Edward Hyde. Wanted for the murder of Sir Danvers Carew.
Edward Hyde.
But wait!
What have you done? My God, what have you done? And you are, I am Henry Jekyll.
It doesn't seem to do any good. He won't answer.
Perhaps he isn't in there.
He's in there all right. Pauline knows. She hasn't seen him in 2 weeks.
I've telephoned and written, but no word from him until this letter came. You may read it.
My dear Diana, you must not be surprised, nor should you doubt my affection for you, if you never see me or hear from me again. Why do you think he wrote such a thing to you?
I have only one explanation to offer. I'm beginning to believe Richard Enfield.
Richard?
Your cousin. He called on me 2 weeks ago.
What did he tell you?
He told me Henry was concealing in this house the murder of my father.
What?
Richard swears he saw Edward Hyde into his house.
That's the most fantastic thing I've ever heard. Never has gotten into Richard.
Of course, I laughed at him and told him I never even wanted him to suggest such a thing again. I regarded his statement as envy because Richard and I, well, we were great friends before Henry.
Yes, I know. That's probably the only reason he had for such an absurd statement.
But this long silence of Henry's, this mysterious self-isolation, I'm beginning to wonder if there was something what Richard said. He seemed so sure.
It's absolutely ridiculous, Miss Carew. And I'll prove to you how wrong you are. I'll speak to Richard about even mentioning the name Edward Hyde to you. You should have more consideration for your feelings.
You rang.
Yes, Pauline. Tell me, is Dr. Jekyll alone in there?
Yes, sir. Quite alone.
You're sure?
Absolutely sure.
But if you haven't seen him for 2 weeks, that means you haven't been in the laboratory. For all you know, he might be concealing someone in there.
That is impossible, Miss Diana. For I've tiptoed in this room at all hours of the day and night and listened outside that door. There hasn't been a sound of a voice, not even his own.
And he hasn't seen anyone at all in that time?
Not a soul. The night Dr. Lanyon was here, I thought I heard a strange voice in there, but I was mistaken. He's been alone ever since, and that's what makes me so afraid.
You mean, you think he's met with foul play?
Oh no, he's alive all right. For he eats the food that I leave on the tray outside that door. And he leaves his written orders after he's finished. I leave his mail and his newspapers outside the door, and he takes them after he's sure I've gone. He's alive all right. I'm afraid he's lost his mind.
What?
How awful.
No.
I believe it's the shock of Dr. Lanyon's death that's done it. If you remember, he was found dead in his study. That was the morning after he was here.
Do you suppose there was any connection between Dr. Lanyon's visit here and his death?
Oh no. The doctors diagnosed his death as a peculiar sort of paralysis, brought on by a great shock.
But there's something else that I've never told a living soul.
What is it?
Do you both give me your word that you will never breathe a word of it to anyone?
I promise.
I swear it.
The morning after Dr. Lanyon was here, I came in here to clean up as usual and found a letter on the floor addressed to the Messrs. Maw.
Who are they?
They're druggists and chemists. When Dr. Jekyll refused to come out, I left the envelope for him. When I came back to retrieve his tray, He had left orders for me to take it to Dr. Lanyon. That was when I left the newspaper with the news of Dr. Lanyon's death. When I came back later, I could hear him moaning and weeping as though his heart were breaking. Like I said, there hasn't been a sound ever since.
Poor Henry. My poor, poor Henry.
And what convinces me even more that something is wrong with his mind is the way he keeps leaving written orders for me to go to every wholesale druggist and chemist in town.
What's this?
To chemist?
Well, what for?
For some certain kind of drugs. Whatever they're for, I don't know. Perhaps you can make something of this. I brought this to the Messrs. Mall only yesterday.
Let me see. Dr. Jekyll presents his compliments to the Messrs. Mall and assures them that the last sample was impure and quite useless for his present purpose. Dr. Jekyll purchased a large quantity from the Messrs. Mall some time ago. Begs them to search it carefully. And should any of the same quality be left, give it to the bearer without question. The importance of this to Dr. Jekyll cannot be described. For God's sake, send me some of the last. Did you get the drugs?
No. The Messrs. Mall became angry and threw the letter back at me like dirt. Which is how I happen to have it. Unopened. For I would never think of opening another's letter.
What do you make out of all this, Mr. Utterson?
There's only one thing I can think of. Jekyll is suffering from some sort of cerebral disease. He's aware of it and hopes to get help from these drugs. I'll keep this letter.
Yes, sir. But please, not a word to anyone.
I promise.
I must see him! I must! We have to get into him, even if we have to break down that door!
That won't be necessary, Doctor.
Henry!
Tell me yourself here.
Henry, you're ill!
Yes, I have changed. I am quite ill.
Sir, if only you'd allowed me to...
No, I'll be all right. Don't worry about me.
You must let me nurse you back to health.
No, Diana, there's nothing you can do. It's not a bodily ailment. It's the mind.
Why haven't you written me or sent me some word?
It has been to protect you.
Protect me? I don't understand.
I shall then explain everything. First, I'd like to speak with Mr. Utterson. Alone. Will you wait outside with Pauline?
But I don't want
I think you'd better, Miss Girl.
Yes. Yes, of course. But you won't be long, will you, Henry? There's so much I want to talk to you about.
Shan't be long, my dear.
For God's sake, so bad. What's the matter with you?
I shall explain it to you. First, there isn't much time left.
What do you mean?
In my will, I made Edward Hyde the beneficiary in case anything happened to me. You remember?
Yes, I remember.
You see, I feared that one day Hyde would absorb Dr. Jekyll to such an extent there would be no turning back.
I don't
What I feared is coming true. I mean to tell you, Utterson, that I am Edward Hyde, as well as Henry Jekyll.
What are you saying? Have you completely lost your mind?
No. My mind is particularly clear at this moment. Early on in life, I began to recognize the thorough and primitive duality of man. Man is not truly one, but truly two. If each, I told myself, could be housed in separate identities, life would be relieved of all that is unbearable. The unjust might go his way, delivered from remorse by that of his more upright twin. And the just could walk securely on the upward path, no longer subject to disgrace from his evil twin. Finally, a light began to shine on the subject from my laboratory table. I devoted all my time to what Langman called scientific balderdash. After many weary, painstaking years, I managed to compound a drug that I believed would eradicate all evil from mankind.
You put this theory into practice?
became the subject of my own experiment.
But you risked death.
Yes, I knew that. But the thought of a discovery so singular and profound overcame the suggestions of alarm. Now, I had long since prepared my tincture. Late one night, with a glow of courage, I drank of the potion. Most racking pangs ensued. A grinding in the bones, a deadly nausea. And these agonies began to swiftly subside. I felt an indescribably new sensation. It was reckless, wicked, fiendishly, delightfully evil. I looked into the mirror for the first time and beheld Edward Hyde.
Incredible.
I was fascinated at this unbelievable transformation. But fearing discovery, I once again drank the potion. And once more felt the racking pangs of dissolution. Then there before me stood Henry Jekyll. My new power tempted me until I fell into slavery. I had but to drink the cup, to doff at once the body of Henry Jekyll, and assume that of Hyde. Smiled at the idea. In order to keep my identity separate, I furnished a house in Soho to which Hyde was tracked by the police, and engaged as a housekeeper, a creature that I knew to be silent and unscrupulous. I next drew up that will you so much protested, so that if anything befell me in that of Henry Jekyll, I could continue on as Edward Hyde, without pecuniary loss.
Now I understand.
As Edward Hyde, I can enjoy all the evil pleasures known to man. For in a second or two, I get rid myself of him and become the respected Henry Jekyll again. It was humorous to me at the time. Then I met Diane, and life took on a whole new meaning for me. It was then that I began to regret the existence of Hyde, and determined myself to be done with him forever. But it was too late. Hyde was gradually growing stronger. He would come upon me without the potion, and then disappear within me, a stain of breath upon a mirror.
It was you who killed Sir Danvers.
No! It was Edward Hyde who killed him, because he opposed the union of Diana and me.
And what of Dr. Lanyon? Did Edward Hyde have anything to do with his murder?
Police were closing in. Your cousin Enfield saw Hyde enter this house. But when he looked through the window of my laboratory, he saw Henry Jekyll. I was down to the last of my drugs. My potion that I believed would kill Edward Hyde for all time. So I sent Lanyon to go and beg him to get the drugs for me. But when he arrived here, Hyde had overtaken me. And with those drugs, demonstrated the complete transformation to Henry Jekyll. It was that shock which killed him, as Hyde knew it would.
You have 2 murders on your conscience.
No, not my conscience. It was Edward Hyde, not Henry Jekyll.
Why do you lock yourself away in your laboratory these 2 weeks?
I was completely without drugs. This house is being watched by Scotland Yard. I dare not leave here, for as Hyde should come overtake me, he'd be captured. So I sent Pauline everywhere to get the proper drugs for me. The ones she was able to obtain were impure and useless. So for 2 long, painful weeks, I fought off the return of Hyde. I cannot do it much longer. He's liable to come upon me at any moment now.
There must be something we can do to prevent his return, or we'll get the best doctors.
Doctors? No. No. I am beyond all medical aid. I have created a Frankenstein which has completely destroyed me. I've outwitted that stupid Inspector Newcomen and his equally stupid henchmen. And I'll continue to outwit them. I'll never find Edward Hyde. They'll never enjoy the spectacle of Hyde dangling from a rope on the gallows. When I can no longer prevent the return of Hyde. Wow.
No, Henry, you wouldn't.
I don't think that will be necessary. The end is not far off.
No, there must be something we can do.
No, there is nothing. It is better so. But first, you have kept all knowledge of Edward Hyde from the police, and at the risk of your own reputation and career.
For your sake.
All knowledge of Edward Hyde must die when Henry Jekyll is gone. No one must ever know what I have told you. Promise?
I promise.
Diana. Look out for her.
I will.
And bring her and Enfield together again. I love her more than anything. I just want her to be happy. I should never have come between them. Sir Danvers was right. He was very right. Now I wish you'd leave me alone.
You see Miss Diana, as you promised.
On one condition. She promises to leave as soon as I bid her.
I'll tell her.
Dear God, look into my heart. Forgive my sins. I was wrong to tempt you. Forgive me. Forgive me. Oh, bad news from God, Henry. No! No! No one will ever again look upon the face of Edward Hyde. We shall see about that, Doctor.
Mr. Utterson told me, Henry.
I'm afraid Henry is available now, my love.
Let her go, Mr.
Henry, I noticed you and you would never hurt me.
I'm sorry, Diana. This must end now. I love you.